Hello everyone and welcome to the 8th episode of Retro Horror Games Quest. Today's game is one that I have never heard about before, so I'm pretty excited. We'll be taking a look at Dark Seed, a point-and-click adventure game for the MS-DOS, inspired and using RHGQ's art. I hope I'm saying that correctly. It sounds creepy already. I can't wait. What the hell? Dark Seed was released in 1992 for the MS-DOS and was developed by Cyberdreams. RHGQ's art heavily inspired the game. If you're unfamiliar with Giger's work, well, let's just say that you're probably not. Have you watched Alien? Yeah, the xenomorph's design from Alien was created by Giger. Giger also did the cover art for multiple albums by well-known musical acts, Korn's weird microphone stand, and the design of various Ibanez guitars, among other things. His art is also the primary influence of the upcoming game Scorn, which I am very looking forward to playing. So yeah, there's a chance you know his work without realizing. Dark Seed is not just inspired by his art though, it also uses some of it. Cyberdreams approached Giger about the game, and they were provided access to most of his work, with one condition. Giger wanted the game to be higher in resolution. The standard of 320 by 200 was not enough to do justice to his art, so Cyberdreams agreed to use the higher resolution of 640 by 350. 350! I don't exactly know what this implies in terms of development at the time, but some scenes do feel a little bit stretched. It's nothing major to be honest, but it is noticeable here and there. It's also possible that DOSBox was displaying the game at a different resolution when I played it, but I saw other videos online which I believe were running on actual MS-DOS and everything looked the same, so I don't really know. That isn't important though. What is important is that Giger's art is weird, creepy, alien, uncomfortable, and a perfect match for a horror game. The game tells the story of Mike Dawson, a writer who just acquired a big old mansion on Ventura Drive, in a small town called Woodland Hills. Huh. How many games in a row with mansions does that make in the series? Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. That's 4 in a row. That's a lot of horror game mansions. On his first night in the house, Mike has a horrible nightmare where some machine inserts an alien embryo into his skull. Cute. And so, he wakes up with a monster headache.
That sure was some nightmare. It even left me with a monster headache.
Mike gets out of bed, and we are finally allowed to explore.
My head is killing me.
As I was saying, we are finally allowed to...
My head feels like it's going to explode.
Alright, Mike. Buddy, you don't have to keep repeating that.
These nightmares have given me a mean headache.
Okay, dude, now you're just getting on my nerves. After taking a painkiller, so we can finally shut up about it, and taking a shower, because this game is hygiene sensitive and won't allow you to interact with other people without taking one first, we are finally free to explore the mansion, which was sold to Mike with all its contents intact. After a bit of snooping around, Mike learns about a strange broken mirror in the living room, and that the previous owner was suffering from similar headaches. Were they monster headaches? Yes, they probably were. The gameplay is very straightforward. Like any point-and-click adventure game, you point and click to interact with stuff.
Victorian chair.
Did I seriously just write that? Thankfully, this time around, we are not playing with an NES controller, so there's really no monster headaches to be had from the controls, and I should really stop with the monster headache thing. You use the left mouse button to perform an action on whatever you are pointing at, and the right mouse button to change said action. There are 3 actions you can take in this game. The move action is represented by a normal mouse cursor and allows you to move around by clicking on the floor. When you are hovering an area that you can walk through to another screen, like a door or stairs, the cursor changes to 4 arrows pointing inwards. The interact action, which is represented by a hand and changes to a hand pointing its index finger when pointing at something you can interact with, And finally, the look action, which is represented by a question mark and changes to an exclamation mark when hovering something you can investigate further. If you move the mouse pointer to the top of the screen, your inventory will roll in from the top. This is pretty straightforward. You can interact with items in your inventory the same way you would interact with your environment. Clicking on an object in your inventory will make you hold it, and then you can interact with something else in the scenery to use the item on. Standard point-and-click adventure fare. I found the game's premise to be very interesting. It's definitely not your standard Alien story. Here, the alien world is actually parallel to ours, and you can traverse between both worlds by using the mirror in the living room. After you fix it, that is. Why these aliens called Ancients are here, and what they want, is what you strive to unfold during the game. After traversing between worlds for a while, you will realize that the alien world is a literal mirror of the real world. This is a really cool mechanic for exciting puzzles. I wouldn't say the game made use of this feature as much as it should have, but a couple of puzzles that are there were fun to solve. For example, the first time you visit the alien world, you may find that some of the doors are closed.
I don't think there's anything in the world I could do to open that door.
Opening the equivalent door in the real world will open it in the alien world. Pretty cool. When you traverse into the alien world, you will also notice that your UI suffers some changes. Not just the UI, the color palette also seems to change to fit the strange surroundings. It's an incredibly nice touch and really elevates the creepiness and oppressiveness of the atmosphere. The game's progression is pretty straightforward. Find clues, solve puzzles to find clues for other puzzles, and eventually solve the mystery and reach the end. The problems start, though, when you start analyzing what you must do to proceed. The game is short, and I feel like, because of that, in an effort to elongate the playtime artificially, the developers gave the game a time limit, and tied some puzzles and events to it, which is unfortunate. The game spans 3 in-game days. Each in-game day lasts for an hour, so you would think this would make the game maybe around 3 hours long. But there's a bunch of times where you are just wandering around without knowing what to do, waiting for an event to trigger, which you don't know you should be waiting for. Thankfully, the developers implemented a time skip feature. Pressing the T key will advance time in 1 hour increments. Thank God. I was already having Shenmue flashbacks.
Do you know of a place where sailors hang out?
Eventually, you also find a pocket watch, which you can use to check the in-game time. This is useful because Mike will literally feign into sleep at 10 PM, no matter where he is at the moment. If you find yourself in the real world, this is fine. I guess he just makes an effort and walks back into bed. But if you're in the alien world, however, that's death for you. So, check the clock. It's there for a reason. I would say the game is maybe 1.5 to 2 hours long for a full playthrough. That is, a complete playthrough where you actually start and reach the end of the game, because you will have to suffer through multiple incomplete playthroughs before that happens. Why is that? Well, it's because this game suffers from TND syndrome. That stands for trial and error, by the way, and the game is littered with it. Unlike the previous game that I reviewed, Alone in the Dark, which was also littered with it, but in which saving the game was a breeze, saving the game in Darkseed is a multiple-step process, and a slow one at that. You have to open the save menu, choose the save option, enter the name you wish for your save file, agree to replace the save file if you enter the name that already existed, and wait a few seconds while it saves. For a game that can lock you in an unbeatable state, this is incredibly annoying. And the loading process? That also takes a million years if you die. While in-game, you can just open the save menu, choose load, and load your save game. But if you die, you have to skip all the intros, wait for Mike to get out of bed at the beginning of the game, complain about his monster headache again, and then you can finally load the game. I snuck monster headache in there again. Like I stated before, you have 3 in-game days to beat the game. If you fall asleep on the 3rd day, you will have your 4th nightmare and die. Of course, the only way you would ever know this is if you had it actually happen to you. Which I did. I thought I was doing pretty well in my first playthrough, and then, suddenly, the 4th nightmare kills me. I thought maybe I did something wrong, so I reloaded my last save and tried again, only to have the same nightmare and die. So I realized my save game was stuck in an unwinnable state. My only save game. There are way too many instances where you can get stuck in an unbeatable state. Maybe you took too long to do something. Perhaps you picked an item before the time when you were supposed to actually pick it up. All stuff that you would not be able to know before you did it. And since you don't know precisely when the game got locked in that state, loading your save games might just be an effort in redundancy. If you could save and load quickly, this would be less of a pain. But considering how those features work, the whole experience is incredibly frustrating. Here's an example that happened to me. There's a gun in the police station. You can pick it up. It's evident that you should pick it up. But if you do pick it up, on the next day the police will take you into prison, essentially ruining your playthrough because you were not supposed to be in jail at that precise moment. You are, unknowingly, if it's your first time, stuck. You can keep going, but eventually you'll find the choke point and be forced to restart the game or load a super early save. Later on, you receive a hint telling you that you need the gun.
Steal from those who protect you, or you will not be able to protect yourself in the dark world.
And you do, but you need to get it in other very specific circumstances. Here's another example that really annoyed me. There's a point in the game where you lose all your items, and before that, you can place items in a secure place so you can retrieve them later. If you don't know and don't do this, your run is over, but you will only know this a lot later. Super fun. There's also an instance of pixel hunting here. In the library, there's a hairpin you must pick up from the floor. Can you see it? It's this thing over here. It just looks like a crack on the floor. If you don't pick it up, your run will be over, but much further into the game. So you won't know you screwed up for a long time.
She's
Again.
extremely beautiful.
The puzzles themselves are not too obscure, which is a good thing. Most of them can be solved with logic and a keen eye, maybe excluding some of the puzzles towards the end of the game. The exploration is very rewarding though. I had fun exploring the house, the cemetery, the village, and the alien world.
Mechanical leech.
The music, however, clashes a bit with the atmosphere at times. But most of the time, it seems to achieve this really eerie something is wrong with the music feeling, which I am sure was intentional, and again, a good thing. The tunes are a bit repetitive though. The game looks pretty good. The main character sprites were made from photographs of the game designer and producer, Mike Dawson. Oh, I see what you did there, sneaky Mike. And he also voiced his eponymous character.
Monster headache.
There's quite a bit of voice acting and most of it is fine. Let's say it didn't feel any more awkward than other horror games.
Hi, Mike. Here's the book that was put on hold for you.
There's also this random woman's voice in the cemetery. I still have no idea where it comes from.
Step back. You're on hallowed ground.
Weird. It's the only time this happens in the game.
Don't disturb the dead.
And that's Dark Seed. Giger's art really gives this game an atmosphere like no other. The game looks good, plays good, sounds okay, and has a lot of progression problems. I would certainly recommend the use of a walkthrough if you decide to play it. But don't use it right away. Take your time, do a few runs. You might be able to beat it without resorting to a guide, if you have enough time that is. And patience. Is it a horror game? Yes, it most definitely is. Some of the imagery is downright nightmarish. We're talking about Giger here. And is it scary? No, not really. The alien world is creepy and transmits discomfort to the player, but it's really not that scary. I give Dark Seed for the MS-DOS 2 stars out of 5, with a survival horror fan required play score of maybe. Were it not for the trial and error situation, and I would have probably given this a yes. But it's just too frustrating. I'm hoping the sequel, which I'll be making a video about very soon, doesn't have any of these problems. Next time on Retro Horror Games Quest, we'll be taking a look at another game I know nothing about. The game is called The Legacy: Realm of Terror, which is a great name, and I'm looking forward to learning what it's all about. Enjoy the video? Let me know by clicking the like or the dislike button. If you enjoyed it and you want to see more RHGQ, that doesn't work. RHGQ? That sounds weird. If you enjoyed it and you want to see more Retro Horror Games Quest, you can do so by visiting my channel or clicking the playlist in the description down below. Wanna know when the next episode is out? Then please subscribe and click the notification bell if you want to get notified when it's released. Also, did you ever play Darkseid? When? And what are your thoughts on it? Let me know in the comments. And of course, a gigantic thank you to my patrons who are showing up on screen right now. I hope you enjoyed this one. So thank you for getting scared again with me tonight. And What just happened? I was going to do a review on Darkseid, but I feel like I did it already? No, I mean, I had a horrible nightmare where I did the review already? It was so weird and vivid. My head hurts. What a monster headache. Oh well, I guess I'll do it another day. Huh. The camera is on. Weird. I wonder if I can figure out what the hell happened by watching the recording. What the hell? That's me. But it feels like it can't be me. So thank you for getting scared again with me tonight. And I hope to see you in the next episode of Retro Horror Games Quest.